Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm exacting my revenge on the strongest advanced bot on chess.com, the Manuel bot, rated 2100. In one of my last episodes, I did a speedrun trying to beat all of the advanced bots, and I managed to beat every single bot except for Manuel. So today, I'm trying to get my revenge on Manuel and beat him once and for all. We'll start with the same thing as last time, d4. d4 is a great first move, thanks Manuel. Bishop f4, so far we're playing the exact same game we played last time. d5, it's the same thing. e3, you guys already know that I like to play the London system. I think it's a pretty solid opening to play in general, and it's generally pretty good against bots. We get c5, I'll play c3. Whenever I see c5 or knight to c6, I always play c3 to consolidate the center and hit that b4 square, cover it from the knight moving to that square. We get knight to c6, so we'll continue development, knight to f3. And we get knight to h5, which is exactly what he played last time. This time, instead of bishop g5 and then this little number after h6 and g5, we're just going to drop the bishop back right away. We're going to play it a little bit differently. I'd like to get into a more solid position. We'll recapture with the pawn. We've opened up a line for the rook, and we were met with e6. We'll develop the bishop, hitting the h7 pawn with the bishop and the rook, and Manuel plays a perfectly natural move, h6, and tells us that he sees what we're getting at. All right. We'll go ahead and finish development with knight to d2. We're met with bishop to e7, and in the last game we played, I think he ended up castling queenside because of the dynamic of the position. Since he'd pushed all of these pawns, it didn't make a lot of sense to castle kingside anymore, so Manuel castled queenside. But we've gone for a more solid variation this time, so it's more likely that he'll castle kingside, and we'll have a more even game. The question is, which side do I want to castle to now? I'm going to go ahead and play queen to e2 and leave both options on the table for now. Okay, we get c4, which begins to close the center. Bishop c2 is pretty much the only move here. And short castle, sorry. I can't deny that it's really tempting to play either g4, g5, and then castle long and just see what happens, or knight to e5. And if takes, I have a center pawn. There's no d4 break because I have a good grip on the center, and then maybe I can look for some sort of kingside attack. At the same time, he has the bishop pair, so it's in my favor to not open up the center. So after something like knight to e5, takes, f6, I assume that I should play something like f4 and try to hold on to the center. Okay, for better or for worse, this position is just way too tempting, so I'm going to go ahead and castle long, and it's going to be what it's going to be. We get bishop to d7, and it's our turn now, so we need to figure out what the fastest way to strike is. Because we're assuming that his plan is just b5, b4, and then right away there's exchanges, a little bit scary, rook to b8, maybe takes, and then bishop a3, which would be checkmate in that situation, which obviously isn't exactly necessarily what's going to happen, but it's a general idea that he probably has. So we have to figure out how to strike faster than that. I'm going to start with e4, because I feel like here for him, f5 was kind of necessary to hold down the e4 square, but he hasn't played that, and e4 would be really liberating for a lot of my pieces. It would also destabilize his center, which would make a flank attack less scary, for lack of a better word. We'll play e4 here. Okay, we get rook to c8. Obviously, he's not interested in trading off in the center. And rook to c8 is actually a really interesting move, because unless he's looking for a rook lift, I'm not really sure what the long-term plan is. I guess actually b5, b4, and then this rook supports the c-pawn, maybe? That's the only way I can make sense of it, because a rook lift would be kind of silly. Instead of capturing right away, I'm going to play rook to e1 to line up a little bit of pressure, hangs onto this knight. If the knight moves, takes, drops the bishop. So I'll bring my rook to e1. And now's a good time to mention that I will do game review at the end of the game, because a lot of you guys have requested it. I tend not to do it for sillier games where I'm like up a queen, or it's Martin and Stockfish and weird funny things happen. But if it's an even solid game like this, just against a regular bot, I think it does make sense to do the game review after. We get rook to e8, which makes me wonder if I want to open this up anymore, because now my queen is on the same file as this rook. So it might make more sense now to just play e5 and then find a way to continue the attack from there. We'll play that, e5, we'll close the center. We get queen to b6, right? Makes sense. He's probably looking for queen to a6, or I guess I don't understand why he wouldn't just play queen to a5 right away if that was his plan. But we do get queen to b6, which moves in that general direction. So we see that he's continuing that attack. And I will play g4, because that's the fastest way for me to look for a break on the king side. Okay, he did play queen to a6, which I guess is fine. I can either play, I have a couple of options, king b1, bishop b1, a3, or ignore it altogether. And after captures, just knight back to b1. Although that's a little bit scary, because then there's like ideas of knight a5 to b3. I guess I could just capture. It's a little bit sketchy, but it might be fine, actually. And honestly, even a3 kind of leans into a bishop sacrifice, which would be pretty scary. So I'm here for a good time, not a long time, so we'll just push g5 right away. Ooh, g6 is super interesting. I was kind of expecting just pawn takes, and then I was going to figure out, get my knight out of the way, queen h5, something like that. But g6 doesn't look right. Maybe the engine would disagree, but as a human player, it doesn't really stop this tension. And I guess it just kind of cuts off my bishop a little bit. So I will capture here without thinking about it too much. Queen takes, and I'll play knight to h4, just looking for this sacrifice. At this point, I just need to blast open the king side. Bishop g5 makes a lot of sense, actually. Pins the knight, so if check, bishop is the only option, and then maybe knight to a5, knight b3. It's a little bit uncomfortable. I wonder if I can play queen to g4 here. Check, king here. Takes, queen takes, bishop c2, knight to a5. I don't think I'm fast enough for that. The other option is just to drop the knight back and force the bishop to go back. We'll play that. We'll play knight back. Okay, bishop comes to f4, which I didn't bother explaining, but we're just going to kick it out with g3, and I guess force this trade now. Right, bishop takes. I could take with the knight, or I could take with the queen, which is really interesting, because then maybe h7, queen h6, or rather, oh, maybe not. We'll take with the knight, so the knight can come back and defend, and then I can play queen f3, queen f6. Checkmate coming soon. Is that a threat, or is that a congratulations? Okay, knight to a5, looking for this, which I can just take with the bishop. Looks fine. If queen check, knight back, also looks fine. So we'll play check. Oof, let's get that king covered. King to g7, queen to f3. Looking for queen to f6. Looks really promising. We get check, knight back to b1. Everybody's doing their job over here. f5. Oh, inviting en passant. I think we have this in the bag at this point. I don't want to get overconfident, but this looks pretty darn winning. So we'll do en passant, which we know is forced, right? With check, king to f7, sacrifice, takes. Where's my checkmate though? I need a guarantee I have checkmate if I'm going to sack a bishop. So let's think this through a little bit. Let's do some actual thinking. Or I could play just boring rook h6. Knight check, takes. Like I said, boring, but it probably works. Queen d3 maybe? Okay, so we'll play the boring rook h6 version instead. Well, this isn't shaping up to the romantic attacking victory I had in mind. You know what, Manuel? Now that you say it like that, I'm kind of sorry. Personally, I like Paul Morphy's games quite a lot as well, so I feel kind of bad that he's a Paul Morphy fan and doesn't get to follow through on his dreams. Anyways, not my issue right now. Queen to d3, takes, check here. Check here. Queen, takes, sack the rook, question mark? That might be checkmate. We'll play it out. Queen d3. Rook, okay, rook to h8 is not going to cut it. Hold on. Takes, here, check and mate. Oh, that was actually faster than I was expecting. All right, check. Might need to muddy the waters a bit here. I don't think you have a way to do that. Check. And checkmate. And finally, I can say I've defeated all of the advanced bots. Wow, you're a real Adolf Anderson. Can I have another try? Adolf Anderson is, wasn't he one of Paul Morphy's like biggest rivals, like strongest competitors? Probably. I don't remember though, to be honest. All right, game review time, as promised. Okay, I have like no comments on this. I honestly thought I played a pretty decent game. According to Game Review, I played horrendous. 66% accuracy, 666 unlucky. 57% accuracy by Manuel. Look at all these 1150 rating. Apparently I played a great opening and then dubious middle game. 98.4 in the opening, bam, 52 in the middle game. Holy moly, that's horrendous. All right, let's see what actually happened in this game. All right, we've got d4, knight f6, book. Knight h5 is the first one that isn't officially book, and I've never actually had a human player play that against me anyways. Bishop g3 is good, takes is apparently best. This is fine. Apparently that's dubious. So good development. Like it said, we played a pretty accurate opening. And then, okay, fair enough. Long castles was an artistic decision on my part and probably not objectively a good move. Against a human player, I played it in a blink of an eye because it's like a semi-closed queenside, and the kingside is just ready for action. There's even an open file here for my rook. g4, this pawn is even a little extra advanced, ready to tickle that h6 pawn. I mean, I would play that in a blitz and a bullet game in the blink of an eye. But Engine says, mistake. We get bishop to d7, and I agree that this is probably too slow. They missed the opportunity to punish a mistake. It's either probably f5 or b5, if I had to guess. Let's see what it thinks is the best move. Oh, queen to a5. Okay, with a similar idea, striking in the queen side as quickly as possible. So Manuel played a little bit slow. e4 was apparently good enough. Rook to c8, again, just too slow. And rook to e1 is a bad idea, or a miss, rather. So what was better here? Okay, Engine wanted me to play g4 right away, looking for g5 as soon as possible. I played it a little bit more slowly. Rook to e1, rook to e8, countering my miss with another miss. I wonder what the best move was here. Right, b5, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Striking as quickly as possible. I guess both of us just missed a lot of opportunities to just strike a little bit more quickly. We played it a little bit slower than we needed to. I'm not excited to see what all of this is, but I know you guys are. So e5 was apparently best. Queen to b6 is a mistake, right? It was probably better just play queen to a5 right away, which we talked about actually during the game. g4 is a miss? Okay, well, I have to see what's better than g4. You've been telling me to play g4. Whoa, queen to e3. Okay, so the idea is center is closed. All of Manuel's pieces are basically on the queen side or back in the center. And I'm assuming the idea here is like rook takes h6 or some crazy idea. Or g4, g5, but actually have another support piece. So basically getting the queen into the game instead of just going for the pawn break right away. We get queen to a6. g5 is a blunder. You permitted the opponent to eventually win a rook. I'm sorry, what? It's even. Even you think it's even. How am I losing a rook? Okay, Manuel obviously didn't take advantage of it with this funky g6 move, but I'm curious to see what the rook winning idea was. This wins a rook? Okay, I have no idea what it's talking about, so let's investigate. All right, queen takes a2. Knight to e4? What? Why would I play knight to e4? That looks horrendous. Okay, if I was actually playing this, what would I play? I would take. For sure I would take. And then how is this losing a rook? Let's see what it says. g6, queen to e3, knight to b4, queen f4, queen a1, knight b1, bishop a4, knight g5. Okay, I have no idea what it's talking about, where I'm losing a rook, but I'm starting to think that the engine is just going a little bit crazy. So we're going to go back to the review. If one of you guys wants to put it in like Stockfish or something like that and let me know if there's actually a variation where I lose a rook, I would be honored to get that feedback because I don't understand where I'm losing a rook. Anyways, g takes h6, overlooked. Well, yeah, it was rook takes h6. That actually makes a lot of sense. Actually, in the game when I played it, right after, I thought, oh wait, it makes way more sense to bring the rook into the game so I can double my rooks after. But it's all right. It worked out anyways. Queen takes a2. Knight h4 is a blunder again. I'm so confused. I'm assuming that there's like some crazy Stockfish line that would have worked this whole time and Manuel is just not allowed to see it because he's only 2100. And I guess I'm physically incapable of seeing it because I'm also 2100. Anyways, bishop g5 gives me back the advantage. Knight to f3 hands it right back. And bishop f4 is a great move that wins a queen, apparently. But it's only 2 points advantage for Manuel. Okay, g3 is dubious. Bishop takes d2, misses the way to win the queen. So obviously we have to see how we're going to win a queen here. Queen to a1. Bishop b1. Knight b4 takes. Holy moly. Wow. What? Oh my god. Wow, I have no words. 10 moves deep, and it basically just threw. I mean, knight b4 is savage. That's just savagery. Now rook c8 actually makes a lot of sense, because if take c3, the rook is lined up and ready to go. So it wasn't even b5, b4. It was just knight b4 right away. That's actually such a good idea. I need to use that in a game. That's savagery. Wow. Yeah, I would have never seen this knight b4, knight to a2 idea. Well, interesting. We played knight takes d2, which afterwards we still have the advantage, apparently. Knight to a5 is too slow. h7 is good. Queen f3 is good. Knight b1 is best. That was the idea the whole time, is that the bishop would cover this square, the knight would cover the king. f5 is apparently excellent, which makes sense when you have a rook, a queen, a bishop, and a pawn on top of your king with a bunch of empty squares and nobody else to help him. I guess f5 is an excellent move in that context. En passant, king to f7, rook to h6 is dubious and apparently slow. I wonder if the best move here was bishop takes. That would be kind of funny if it was, because we talked about that. Oh no, not for him, silly, for me. I want to know what my best move was. Rook to h6, best move was bishop takes g6, right. Sacrificing and then looking for bishop push. I'm sure the rook gets tied down, and then there's some funny ideas there. Anyways, back to knight b3 check, all according to plan. Queen d3 is good enough, targeting the g6 pawn. And rook to h8 is just not cutting it in this position. Anyways, queen takes, check, and mate. So I think that was actually a really good game review. We talked about how we should probably start our attacks a little bit more quickly, how we should lead with our pieces and not with our pawns. And we saw this really crazy idea of lining the rook up on c8 behind a bunch of pawns, so you can throw the knight on b4, and if it takes, the pawn pushes through and it sees the king. That's a pretty cool idea. Anyways, if you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next one.